Overtired. So tired. Overtired.
Hi, everybody. This is the Overtired podcast. I am Jeff Severance Gunsel. I am normally here with my comrades, Christina Warren and Brett Terpstra. They are not here. They are comrading somewhere else with somebody else. And I have instead Merlin Mann joining me. Hello, Merlin.
Hi Jeff, how are you? I love your name. You have a nice.
Oh.
No, I like the as we say in poetry class. I like the scansion of your name. I like the mouthfeel of your name. I shouldn't have said that.
Is that the poetry version of I like the cut of your jib?
It is very much like that. It's kind of nautical verse.
Nautical verse, yes. Hey, listen, I want to get something out of the way right away.
Yes, do it.
Which is, and I put this in the show notes kind of cryptically. There have been a couple of cases in listening to your podcast.
Wait a minute, this is about the scorpions.
Yeah, yes.
What the hell?
Where you are starting a sentence that is about to include the name Matthias Jobs.
Oh no, I got it wrong.
And I say to myself, I don't know, maybe it's not. How is it supposed to be said?
The thing is, this is that phenomenon that needs a name of I've read this word approximately 200 times, but I've never had to say it out. I still have friends where I don't know really how to pronounce their name.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And like you pick up in my case, that's how I learned the solo for No One Like You was from Guitar for the Practicing Musician, which would have every issue would have, this is called magazines. You'd buy them. And it had tablature for usually like 3 songs. It could be Eruption, it could be, whatever. But and I for some reason my friends and I guess because we thought we were cool, we said Matthias, but I don't think that's right.
Matthias, yeah. I would have only read the name in Hit Parader or Circus magazine.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Circus. Boy, they loved Def Leppard for a while, didn't they?
They loved Def Leppard. So here's why Matthias Jobs. I mean, besides the obvious, which is that he should be spoken about and recognized.
Shreds. Is he the one with the Explorer?
Yeah, I think he's the one.
He's kind of the more. He's the less. I was going to say he's the handsome one, but he's the less grotesque of the people.
That's a nice way to put it. And also, like saying his name as a young man might have been the first time words came out and I felt sophisticated. Matthias Jobs.
Yeah, isn't that a good feeling until a second later when someone goes, "That's not how that's not
how you say it." Exactly. So there have been these. I think it's twice, maybe 3 times. I'm listening to a podcast. You're starting a sentence that will ultimately have the name Matthias Jobs in it, and I somehow know it's coming,
and it
is said in my mind at the same time, and I think, how the fuck does that happen with Matthias Jobs?
Isn't that funny? Before we were recording, we were talking about an affliction, a gift that some people like us have, which is like you have a very close association between some piece of audio and either like a time or a location or a feeling, often a location. But I think it's somewhat allied to that. Or like today when the 45th president, because I watch a lot of his rallies.
That's the one with the T.
Was it testosterone?
No, the letter T.
Oh yeah, but it's also the testosterone. That's part of the problem.
Yeah, it's also the testosterone.
Yeah, they put it on hats now. But he'll
stop licking my hat. It's getting aggressive.
I ask you nicely. Very nasty woman licking my hat. Think of it. But no, he does that thing where he goes like, they're letting him in 21 million people. They're from their jails and their prisons, their mental institutions and their insane asylums.
It's like chai tea.
Okay, but here's the thing now, Jeff, because we are in the same cuirass about this. Do you know what the next thing might be after he says "and insane asylums"? Do you know what the next line could be if he's in the right mood?
Well, no.
He simply says he begins his next sentence. He pauses for a minute to soak in the adulation, and then he says, "The late great Hannibal Lecter."
Oh, the late great Hannibal Lecter, of course.
And do you know? Have you arrived at the reason why he always says that right after that?
No, I've never gone for the full context, which is probably what he would ask me to do.
This is something we've been exploring on Do by Friday, another podcast I do, and this very much is I'm applying scholarship from actual like journalists and professional speculators. But what does he say? He says that they're emptying out their jails. Then you hear the crime is down in Venezuela, and he'll say 70, 72%, 80%, 90%. Right. But in this particular one, this is the vintage of the last few weeks has been they're emptying out their jails, their prisons, their mental institutions, their insane asylums. Hold for whatever. And then he goes, the late, great Hannibal Lecter. Silence of the Lambs. Does anybody remember the movie Silence of the Lambs? He would like to have you for dinner. And this has been widely reported, but I wanted to, and for those of you who have not heard this, or maybe who don't follow this stuff as closely as I am apparently doomed to do, what's the last thing he said? ellipsis, mental institutions and insane asylums. Somebody figured out, he thinks that is what political asylum is.
Yes. I was wondering if that's where you were
he's made
headed.
an association in his head, the same way that we have these broken brains, where like I think of an overpass in New Zealand every time I think of talking about vocational wheel. Like,
ooh,
that's that Back to Work podcast episode. But yeah. So like and you're like, oh, and then because he really is, I said to somebody the other day, it's almost like he's memorized a Markov chain. Like somebody gave him an MD5 hash, and he somehow unintentionally memorized it, and now he can't unremember it. 729-2202 was my phone number when I was 10. And I will know that for the rest of my life, and I don't need to know that.
Yep.
But if I see the number 729 in the wild, I think of my phone number. If I see the number 207 in the wild, I think of my laundry number in military school. You can't unlearn those things, and I think he is in such a state at this point. Cut all of this out. I'm so sorry, Jeff. Hi, Jeff. How are you?
Oh, I love it. And also you're reminding me in that sort of that space between saying insane asylum and saying Hannibal Lecter. I'm reminded, I know you're a fan of John Dickerson.
I think John Dickerson is so smart. I really like
in the
him.
Most recent Political Gab Fest, he coins the phrase mean time to weird.
Am I allowed to cuss? Forgive me.
Yeah, yes, please cuss.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey.
Fuck you, because I actually wrote that down. I wrote
Excellent.
No, let me find it. No, it was so funny, and because he said it, and I was like, "There's no wait, what? That okay?" I have this from in drafts. Oh God, this is a really poorly taken note. On September 12th at 3:44 p.m. Pacific time, I wrote down John D. Mean time to weird. I literally wrote it down in drafts. It's the only thing in the whole draft.
That's awesome. He's brilliant. He's such a delightful thinker to follow.
I was watching him after the most recent debate with Kamala Harris and on Colbert. And one of the things I really admire about him is he does something that is so unusual and so difficult to do well, which is like Colbert would ask him a question, and every time he'd respond, he'd have a very thoughtful response. But whereas a lot of people would hear a question and then go like, okay, well, I have the training to know how to reframe this into the answer that I want to give. And that usually involves beginning a sentence with the word so, period. And so, you do this thing where you go, so the way that this, but in John's case, he doesn't do that. And he doesn't sound like an asshole, but he very gently acknowledges what the person says, integrates it into his answer. And then rather than necessarily exactly answering the question he was given, he provides the context that he thinks is necessary for understanding how the thing that person said fits into a larger landscape. He never loses track of that. And even as he does that, he does not sound like a conservative, small c, ding-a-ling.
Yeah.
Like he's a very active thinker about things, and he never stops reprocessing things at levels that a lot of us who are obsessed with media and think everything is everything. Like he's really good at disassembling the parts of something and then in a very humane way, giving it back to you in a way that makes you both seem smarter, which is really difficult to do. Believe me, I know.
It's a great way to put it. I also love something he does often when he's talking is he stops and says, "What do I mean by that?"
Oh, I totally agree. And I'm like even on that, if you go back and watch that Colbert interview, where he's wearing a very handsome suit, he
was a very handsome man.
He's a really good looking guy. I mean, his face from every angle is very, he has an S tier face. Title.
From every angle.
Every angle. I've seen every angle of his face. I've photographed his face. I know its dimensions. Other day, I posted a photo of him and me outside my office because I'm
I saw that.
Now that was followers only. But I realized I know too many people named John. It occurs to me every time I look at my photos persons area, and I'm like, I know too many men named John, or some variation of John, and like that I need to really cull this herd at some point. I mean, but he is also, I find him I'm going to say something, Jeff. I don't use this word a ton because I think it has not only been abused, I think it's not a useful word. And I think on some level it doesn't mean what people think it means. But I find him inspiring in the sense, and I'm not saying like I want a poster of him or something or get a John Dickerson poster that says hope for some reason. I don't mean inspiration in that way. I mean the way he rolls, the way that he conducts himself. He is, in the true sense of the word, a gentleman. And being just very, 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 very lightly acquainted with him, he's like that. He's really, really nice and really warm and really smart. And he has worked his humanity, his history, his background, his family, and his Catholicism into a worldview that I find very invigorating. I wish there were more John Dickersons in this world.
And he's someone like Colbert who works his Catholicism into his work in ways that are just really, really beautiful.
And his nerd stuff. The same way that Colbert.
And his nerd stuff.
He's always fact checking the Lord of the Rings stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Real time fact check. No, they couldn't have taken the eagle. I know. But yeah, I think Meantime to Weird is good. I'm sorry, continue.
Meantime to Weird. One
thing I've been looking forward to doing this with you, despite what you could have guessed over the summer with our various.
Oh shit!
No, shh. Our various failed attempts to do this. Settle. No, I didn't mean it that way. I would like to do this show probably more often than you would like, because this.
No such thing.
This tickles a part of my brain that begs for more use. And on the one hand, it's fun because I get to go off with you about things that sound like Guided by Voices EPs, but also like this gives me access to discussing the kind of stuff that I feel is sometimes so subtle and yet so powerful, and yet gets kind of dropped out of the discourse in which everything is everything. And I'm really grateful that you put up with me to schedule this, and I enjoy being here. And if you wanted me to be on more often, I would. Not enough to be annoying, but I really enjoy talking with you. And I follow you on the internet now.
Yes, good to see you on Mastodon.
Yeah.
Recently, a big hit on Double Indemnity.
Oh my God.
A movie I had honestly hadn't even registered, or I probably heard of it, hadn't registered until.
I think everybody's probably seen clips of Barbara Stanwyck walking down the steps or something.
Yes,
but you
right.
If you're like me and you grew up with My Three Sons, you're like, I cannot believe that it's Fred McMurray. It's
crazy.
He's so off, and Edward G. Robinson, all three of them.
Edward G. Robinson, my
God, so
God,
good in that movie. It's such a well-told noir. And I think it's not only famous because it is a very good noir, but also just it's a very watchable noir in a way that like The Big Sleep is completely confusing. Don't bother reading the book. The book does not make any sense at all, but The Big Sleep is still a fun movie. But like, you ever see DOA?
Nope.
Can I give you the log line?
Yeah, give me the log line.
A guy realizes, I want to say that every guy realizes he has been poisoned and has 24 hours to find the person who poisoned him and why. And this is from the 50s.
Yeah.
How cool is that? It's been remade badly several times, but
it sounds, yes. So I am kind of in love with 40s and 50s noir movies right now. I watched The Killing, I watched Human Desire, Double Indemnity, of course. And I am amazed. I think when I was younger, I watched a lot of this kind of stuff, but I mean, I'm talking when I was like 16 or 17. And as a grown ass man, it all just lands differently. Like
I totally agree. And as a grown-ass man, but also as, if I could add to that, as somebody who then has unintentionally been loving movies and increasingly now TV shows that you don't even realize are a noir. I mean, I'll be basic. The Big Lebowski is a noir. There's two big genres that we tend to think of as artifacts from other decades, times when they're really, and less so like noirs, right? Like, I don't think noirs were ever that mainstream. I mean, what's that Elliot Gould movie? It was The Long Goodbye.
Oh, The Long
70s.
Goodbye, yeah.
There's all these kinds of movies that are noir-ish, but, the other one's Westerns, where there's so many things when you watch them and really pay attention. I guess Star Wars is kind of, in some ways, considered a Western. But, like, Mandalorian is straight up a Western. Down to, like, when he walks, there's a spur noise.
Yeah, exactly. It's
but like you know what I'm saying though. What's interesting about that is like it's to me this kind of synthesis, contra my declaration that not everything is everything. I do think it is really it gives me life to be able to associate one thing to another and then to look at to compare and contrast. But even just on an aesthetic level, it's so fascinating to be into the second act of almost everything the Coen brothers has ever done and realized, I mean, yeah, I get that this is about dinglings failing at a heist, but I didn't get how much so many of their movies are really a kind of a noir. Blood Simple, I guess, obviously, but like
Blood Simple's so good.
Yeah. Oh my God, how great are those kids?
Yeah. So
But
good.
yeah, I mean, I like Stuff a lot, and
Love Stuff.
I really, God, I love Stuff. Again, I told you I was up till 3 last night for absolutely no good reason apart from I just kept listening to music that made me want to listen to more music.
And what was the chain? What was the chain?
Do you really care?
Of course I care. I wouldn't ask.
Christ. This is hard to meter because it involves YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Apple Classical app. But let me go look at my Mastodon because that's usually the trails of my effluvium that I can best. I could see I ended with Freddie Mercury. Oh, you know what it was? I got into a little bit of a jack. Oh, yes. You know what it was? There's a really good YouTube channel that I recommend to people who like things. Trash Theory is a YouTube channel. Yeah, so it's this English guy. I love it when people really put effort into something. And this guy makes these videos like the one I recommended the other night was, hey, have you ever heard that song Common People by Pulp? It's a song that I really like a lot. It's a very important song to me from that time. He does this amazing video about like how we got to Common People. He does one about like pre-1976 punk. One of my favorites for selfish reasons is like Power Pop Before My Sharona, like how we got to My Sharona.
Nice.
But he in particular has a series, because he's an English person as far as I know, called New British Canon, where he'll just do a thing on Susie and the Banshees. His one on Eurythmics is so thought-provoking.
My eyes just hit it at the same time as you said it. Yes.
Can I give you a factoid?
Please.
So they arrived pretty big in, I think, 82, I think, with Sweet Dreams in America. And of course, he goes through the Tourists, the two of them, their previous pop band in England that I adore. But goes through all that, blah, 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 blah. But by the time, I think it was their second video, Love is a Stranger, where she's in the back seat of like a limo and she's got like...
Yep, totally.
Yeah. MTV pulled that video until she agreed to show her birth certificate to prove that she was an assigned female at birth person.
Wow.
Now, I didn't know that. And that's just one of the indignities to which she was subjected.
Yeah.
Who does that to Annie Lennox? She's Scottish. It's horrible. Check out The Tourists.
Insane.
Check out The Tourists. They do a cover of I Only Want to Be With You, that old 60s song. They do an amazing cover of that. It's a real earworm. So I was listening to Trash Theory, and I was listening to an episode I've heard before, but I actually like really, really listened to it, which is another one of those. So you get the idea, which is like almost like Hit Parade. The way Hit Parade goes, the wonderful podcast Hit Parade is like, this is a song that was number one. Fantastic podcast. Where he'll go like, and so that gives you, let me tell you the history of boy bands, or let me tell you the history of one of my favorites is an early episode, UB40's, the history of UB40's Red Red Wine, which is a surprisingly compelling episode. Great storyteller. Awesome. Ditto with this guy, where he'll go like, how we got to Nevermind. And I love Nevermind. That was a super important season of music for me. That's my season of Superchunk. That's my season of my second wave of Teenage Fan Club.
Tossing your seeds around.
Oh my God.
Around.
Cast Iron, and Seed Toss. And then
Seed Toss is incredible.
They covered two Sebadoh songs. Not only did they cover two Sebadoh songs on the same record, they released a single that had A and the B side were both Sebadoh songs, both from the same album, and actually, I think it was from Weed Forest, and they covered two songs that were actually like in order on the Sebadoh album. That's a ballsy move in 1991.
That's an excellent move. It's an excellent
any
move.
thought could be the beginning of a brand new tangled web you're spinning. Anyone could be a brand new love. But anyways, so I was watching this one on grunge, and I have to be honest, like I'm in the many genres out there, grunge is not near the top for me as a thing. But like mainly there was we had a free jukebox in college that had that Mudhoney Keep It Out of My Face song on it. I knew that. I knew the drummer in my band really liked Melvin, so I knew Houdini. And like I knew a handful of things. And I knew, I really lost you there, yeah, I don't mind stealing bread. But like going back and listening to like what Soundgarden sounded like at first, all these bands sounded like at first, and that got me into a Melvin's Jag. Then I discovered
that's a good Jag.
I rediscovered. Oh my God,
that's a real.
Have you
good
seen
Jag.
King Buzzo show you how to play Honey Bucket?
I have seen that, and
it's so simple, but it's so cool.
There was an HBO series at one point. We were on the same label, Amphetamine Reptile Records.
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm having some kind of a neurological event. Can you is there a way to just include once what you were in a band that was on Amphetamine Reptile?
Yeah, the Meathead label. I mean, I say that lovingly.
Would I know the name of
You wouldn't.
band?
We were at the end. We were a band called the Freedom Fighters. We were one of the last like 4 releases before Tom Hazelmeyer just like burned out and shuttered the whole thing and just spent all his time at the shooting range.
See, like the kids don't know from this. Today you say Homestead Records or Caroline Records, and people are like, what? Oh, I like indie records. Anyway, but okay. Exactly. So wow.
And the AMRAP offices were in an old dentist office here in Minneapolis, and the studio was downstairs where they recorded the records. But there was this one room that was just piles of weird shit, like promo, like test pressings and VHS recordings of shows from the various bands over the past like 10-15 years, and I'd been such a huge fan. So I just start putting shit in because there's a TV and a VCR there. And there was some HBO show.
Wow, that's so exciting. You don't know. You have no idea. There's probably a piece of masking tape on there that says show 3 or something.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So there's this, I put in this VHS thing. It just says I think it just says Melvin's, and there's just a bunch of random shit on it. And Buzzo is on this HBO show where he's going to buy a mansion, which he can't do.
Wait, approximately what year?
This must have been okay. So
did he have the big hair and everything?
Oh yeah, definitely. I would have been in there in like 98, 97, and so it would have been around there. Yeah. So he walks in with this realtor to this mansion, and he's carrying a lunchbox, like a 1950s style lunchbox.
Got to see this. Oh my God!
So
that's an HGTV show I would watch, sort of like Fishing with John. You ever go fishing?
Fishing with John. Oh my God!
But I would watch.
John Lurie fan.
I would watch an HGTV show where just King Buzzo goes to different open houses.
Oh yeah, totally. What Fishing with John, a mixtape favorite for me.
I bought the Criterion DVD of that. The Willem Dafoe episode of Fishing with John is very, very important.
And the Tom Waits one has a bit where he's singing in the canoe along the river of men.
Can you imagine fishing with Tom Waits?
No, I can't, but I can kind of because of that show. Okay, so anyway, he goes in and the realtor's looking at him like, who the fuck is this? I mean, of course, it's like, there's
For
a
those
lot
of you who
of
don't know,
eccentric...
what's his name? Buzz?
We should do this. Yeah, Buzz Osborne.
These 3 guys, talking about a power trio, these 3 guys who at first were one of the fastest punk bands of all time, but then in time became famous. Their contribution in the canonical story of Seattle grunge, they were the ones who brought in very heavy, very loud. People say Black Sabbath. I don't totally agree, but
very slow.
But think about
slow but fast.
Well, think about Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, one of the greatest songs of all time.
That's a good, yeah.
Like that, but so sludgy. Oh my God, Going Blind.
Oh.
And he is a power trio. The 3 guys, all great musicians, and Buzz, known as King Buzzo. I guess an afro. How do you describe what his hair was? It was like a weather system.
Special, yeah, it's a weather system that works. Yeah, that works.
And
it looks a little bit like those. Looks like the stills of the early nuclear tests. A little bit.
Yeah, or maybe like you get mistaken for like a silhouette of Sideshow Bob.
And his lyrics are complete gibberish, and yet it evoke emotion in me.
You wouldn't know, but he's really smart.
Really smart. So he's buying this house, and the realtor's like increasingly just like, who the fuck? This isn't real. And when he gets the sense that that's happening, he kneels down and he sets the lunchbox on the floor and he opens it up, and he pulls out a magazine on which he's on the cover, and it just says King Buzzo, godfather of grunge. And he says, well, look, you can.
Well, that and 20% will get you a house.
He's like, you see here, I am the godfather of grunge, on which he tries to buy this house.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can keep that copy. I've got more, but that's my 20% is me on the cover of this.
Incredible.
I just sent you the, do you remember when the solo records came out?
Oh, yeah, of course.
So there's
With
three
all
guys in the
Kiss
Melvins, and
covers.
I posted this last night, and this is how I remembered this, was like, the oh my God, the whole story of the Kiss solo albums are their own story. Like the cutout sensation of my youth. The four Kiss solo albums were in cutout for over a decade. Everywhere you went, there was copies of like the Ace Frehley one with, New York Groove. So when the Melvins did solo albums,
was Beth on Peter Chris's solo album?
No, Beth was on Destroyer.
Okay, I don't do Kiss trivia well. Okay, go ahead.
I think they were on Destroyer 76. But anyway, there was that, and that led me into, then I got into looking at one thing I love about Trash Theory also. Hi, my name is Merlin Mann, and this is a podcast about things I like. He does a really good Spotify playlist for every episode, and you'll get why, let's talk after, and I'm going to curate exactly the right first episode for you to watch of Trash Theory. But then he does a really good, like Hit Parade, he does a really good Spotify playlist where like every song that he played a portion of is in it. But then that led me into, then the algo pulls up Freak Scene by Dinosaur Jr. And I suddenly was struck. Here we go, Jeff. You ready? Write it down. Here's another one. The very clear recollection of me, not arguing with, but bantering with Chris and Marty, the other guitar player and the drummer in my band in college, about whether Bug was just a little bit too poppy. Because I had cut my teeth on You're Living All Over Me. That was what got me into Dinosaur. Which is a little heavier, definitely a little weirder. It's got Polito, it's got that weird Sebadoh song on it, but then the algo's, now it's off the hook because now I get Love Is All Right Tonight by Rick Springfield, and that is one of this performance in particular is like, you don't realize like how gifted that band was. You just think of like, oh, it's the guy from General Hospital that had a pop hit. Yeah. He did a Sammy Hagar cover. It's really weird, but that's really. And then that got me into Pat Benatar. They whisper
Hell is for
promises and the 1, 2, 3, 4 down. And they're still married. Yes. Did you know that they've been married since 1980? I checked ChatGPT. I said to ChatGPT last night. Ooh, you see how I bring it around? You see how I bring it around?
So I says the ChatGPT.
I says, what had happened
What is
was,
that, Dairy Girls? So I says to myself, says I.
I've been tied up with my own shoelaces. They tied me to the radiator. It's just not as nice. God, I love that show. So I open up ChatGPT. I open up whatever 400IO preview, and I just type the sentence: Are Pat and Spider still married? No context. Are Pat and Spider with a Y, still married? And it said, as of my knowledge cutoff in October 23, Pat Benatar and her husband Neil Spider Giraldo are still married. They've been together since 1982. Doesn't that make you feel good?
That makes me feel super good. That, listeners, is the sound of me punching in our sponsor read for this episode. And our sponsor for this episode is the amazing 1Password. Now, listen, a lot of people don't know. I'm going to let you in on a secret here, okay? Brett's talked about it before, but we don't mind talking about it. In fact, we kind of like talking about it. We're proud of it. In our free time, me, Brett, Christina, we actually run a pretty large and somewhat shadowy corporation with a bunch of contractors who are, and I'm sorry, contractors, they're shady. You know what you are. You're shady. We need you, but you're shady. One of the things that really, really gets under our skin, oh my God, so many meetings about this, it's how many of those contractors use the devices and apps on our network that we can't control. And that's where this week's sponsor really saves us and has saved us over and over. Imagine your company's security like the quad of a college campus. There are those nice brick paths between the buildings. Those are the company-owned devices, the IT-approved apps, and managed employee identities. And then there are the paths people actually use, the shortcuts worn through the grass that are the actual straightest line from point A to point B. Those are unmanaged devices. They're shadowy IT apps and non-employee identities. like the contractors. Those shady, shady contractors. I love you. Most security tools only work on those happy brick paths, but a lot of security problems take place on the shortcuts. 1Password Extended Access Management is the first security solution that brings all of these unmanaged devices, apps, and identities under your control. It ensures that every user credential is strong and protected, every device is known and healthy, and every app is visible. 1Password Extended Access Management solves the problems traditional IAM and MDM cannot. It's security for the way we work today, and it's now generally available to companies with Okta and Microsoft Entra, and it's in beta for Google Workspace customers. Check it out at onepassword.com/overtired. That's right, we got a custom URL. We didn't put the name of our shady corporation on it. onepassword.com/overtired. Thank you. I'm punching out.
I'm almost done. Then the algo brought up my favorite version of Somebody to Love by Queen, which is not, everybody's like, Live Aid's a good show, but there are other shows, people.
Yeah.
Somebody to Love in Montreal, 1981. This is all on my internet site you can find. And that got me into that. But then that got me into, I went off on a jag, and somehow I went off on an angle. And usually at this point, I would open up Apple Classical and listen to Vivaldi's Summer and try to go to sleep. But which I shouldn't do, because the last movement of that is one of the most baller metal things ever written. But I found myself instead listening to lots of, I don't know what you call this genre, but do you know the band Boy Genius?
Yeah.
Okay, so like, I don't know what you call that genre, like,
which is like a super group, right? Basically.
Yeah, it's Lucy. I got to say this right. It's Lucy Dacus, Phoebe Bridgers, and Julian Baker. These three women who are just super interesting. And I got into and then I was listening to Hannah Ide, who I can highly recommend. And I ended up going back and listening to Torres, Torres, one of the great records. If you like theatrical, musical theaters. Oh, I have a Torres video. It's going to change your life. And that's where I was. And then I finally went to sleep. According to my watch, I went to sleep at like 3:05 a.m. But here's the thing, Jeff. I made a logistical pivot at this point.
Okay.
I don't. The listener is almost certainly not familiar with my work, but one of my thought technologies the last few years has been, it's one thing to feel bad, and it's another thing to feel bad about feeling bad. And so I've discovered that applies very heavily to sleep in my case.
It's like suffering about suffering.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the second arrow. Like it's what the Buddhist says. The first arrow is the one that somebody shoots at you and hits you in the leg, but you feeling bad about that is the arrow you shoot into yourself.
Yes.
And so many of my strategies to bring in another piece of terminology of mine, the mean dad voice. Sometimes when we're not sure what to do in life, or when we're vulnerable, or just in our repose, or just being alive, a mean dad voice tells us what's wrong with us and how we'll never get it right. And that is a uniquely terrible thing to be litigating as you're theoretically trying to go to sleep.
Awful.
You can't make yourself go to sleep. You can't yell yourself into falling asleep. Like, it just doesn't work that way. And so this little part of the concerto I'll draw together by saying, like, so I think the practice, in your words, for this is to say to yourself, I mean, you could do something as glib, works for me, as like, I've decided not to worry about this, or I've decided this is going to be okay. And like, kind of make a deal with yourself. And it may sound like happy talk, but like, seriously, dude, has yelling at yourself ever helped your heartbeat go down and let you go to sleep? Nope. And I've realized, and so
Lord knows I've tried.
And I'll flash forward through years of this practice, and I have a lot of practices about sleep I'd love to share with people. But one of them is, I say to myself, hey, you know what? What's going to happen? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Like, tomorrow is actually Thursday is my Thursday. Thursday is my day when I do things like schedule a podcast with my friends, but it's also when I do a lot of my like power puttering around the house stuff.
Yeah.
And so, like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? I said, well, what I know I need to be up to talk to Jeff at 10. So just set an alarm for 8. I had 4.5 hours of sleep. And then it'll be fine. You've done stuff on 4 hours of sleep lots of times. And maybe you'll take a nap later and maybe you won't, but you can't really catch up on sleep. But there is no benefit to stressing out about sleep you didn't get.
Yeah.
And knowing that before you, quote, try to go to sleep, I find more helpful than it seems. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's the worst thing in the world to be wrestling with yourself.
My inclination then is to go, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
You know?
Come on, man.
Come on. Another, if you, in terms of these, I should write these down, but another nice thing to just very gently say to yourself, I've decided not to let it bother me. That's the actual phrase that I like for lots of things. But another one is, I'm going to put this right on my list. You ready for this?
Yep.
This is a thing you say to yourself. So however you got where you are in a given moment, you find yourself thinking, you don't yell at yourself, you find yourself thinking, it's not the time for that. Or,
yes.
You know what?
Yes.
Or how about just very gently, not now.
Yep.
The same way you'd say to a little kid, well, as much as you want to go to Disney World, we need to go return these batteries at Walgreens. And
the not now thing is a huge act of self-compassion.
Oh my God. Do you think? Do you do anything? No, honestly, do you do anything like that?
It's only, I hope this is related enough, but it's something that really
it's not going to matter either way. I'm just talking to you.
I suppose. While you were talking, something that kind of came up for me that really made me think of. So I dropped my oldest son, my firstborn, off at college about a month ago, like 11 hours away. And man, with two things. One is I did have to decide months earlier, I have to stop grieving this now, because there'll be a time to grieve it.
I've already started. I'm still grieving stuff from 6th grade as my kid is getting ready to apply to college.
Yes.
I'm still 2 wars behind at every juncture.
Yes.
Oh, Jeff, I feel
hard
for you.
Well, but here's the thing. Okay, so I successfully, it took me a minute, and it took me, bringing it up in therapy, but I got to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm not grieving this anymore, because I can't enjoy him here, because everything makes me think about how he'll be gone, right? I can't do that. It's not the kind of presence I want to have here, right?
Oh my God, I'm so ashamed at how often I think that. I'm so. There's one point in the early part of my kid's transition where we just kind of quietly, not like banned photos of my kid on devices, but there was a time when we were still getting our hands around it where it was weird to see a photo of our baby and be like, oh my God, we're adjusting to so many things. In addition to everything about having a teenager, there's another big thing. It wasn't bad in any sense. I don't know. I hate to sound needy about it, but I fucking love my kid. But there was a point where you're in the same way for you, the day that you drop your kid off at college may not be the day that you come back and watch that video of your kid having a bath when he was 1. Maybe that's not the best day for that.
It's not the best. It's not the best.
Or maybe it is. Maybe it is. I mean, I guess it varies.
The thing that I think was actually a first time truly integrated lesson in this was that in the week before we were to take him, I was a wreck. I was feeling agony that was flavors of a terrible breakup, and flavors of a death where you're like, I don't have anyone to be mad at. Some deaths. Let's say a natural death. I don't have anybody to be mad at. I can't reverse this.
Well, it's hard to say you didn't know it was going to happen. It's
exactly.
It's not surprising that it happens. It's surprising when it happens.
So I was having these moments for that entire week. It really is kind of this agony. And now I don't cry easy, and that's not a point of pride. I just don't cry easy.
Right.
And as it's getting closer, I am almost, by the end, I'm in a constant state of sort of sniffling, and I can't say words that are related to us taking him away. I can't even say the words, right?
Talk about a deep down, complicated, knot of emotions. It's not one emotion. It's not like you go, I'm sad. It's it's like almost the definition of the word bittersweet. Which is I have irreconcilable feelings right now, and it's not 1 or 2 or 3 feelings. I have 7 irreconcilable feelings, and they're all real. There's none of them that aren't real.
And there's this point where it's I'm like, okay, agony. I can sit with agony and figure this out a little bit because I'm doing this to myself right now, right? Like I can be very sad without doing this to myself. And I was like, I had this thought because I was just really crying. I just had to kind of steal away to cry all the time.
Especially if it's not easy for you, right? I mean,
no.
You have to like almost like probably enter into some kind of like a chamber and like go, well, now
Totally.
here comes the process of me letting this happen.
Yeah, I have to be like in a car or something.
Yes,
so,
yes.
So I'm like, okay, I'm crying at this and I need to cry through it. Like I'm moving at this, but I need to move through it, right? Like that's
the only way out is through. Yeah.
Oh my God. And when I had that, I was like, it still was hard. Next couple of days were really hard, but there was such a different feeling to it. And again, it's like one of those things where it's like an accidental. I mean, I guess the act of self-compassion was just stopping and being like, okay, fucking hold on. This is horrible. Let's just take this apart.
Well, I mean, the act of compassion is like you've accepted that you can't, in the same way that you can't yell yourself to sleep.
Yeah.
I say in that document, like that, I feel like negative, quote unquote, negative emotions are like cockroaches, where like you can scare them away for a little while, but that they'll come back. They're like the sand people. They'll be back in greater numbers. You know what I mean?
Back. Yes.
You can't.
Yes, in greater numbers. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, they that's why they walk single file.
Exactly. Yeah.
To disguise their numbers. Feelings. Hi, I'm Merlin Mann, and I think feelings are like Tusken Raiders.
But then it becomes like the what's the Feist video for the 1, 2, 3, 4 song where I think it's one person and then it's great. Yeah. So anyway, that was I thought about that when you were talking about this. It's like it's a different thing. It's a different space, but it is that thing of having to tell yourself, hey.
But you can't do that. I can't do that anyway without a certain level of, just to really state the obvious, I find it difficult to do that unless I make it a practice or a special project, or unless I basically say to myself, you know what, going in this, like it's almost like a Daniel Kahneman thing, continuing in this first order thinking way about this is not great for me. Like I can actively put all of my energy into avoiding this feeling, or I can accept that maybe the feeling won't kill me and it might actually make me feel more human in some way.
Yeah.
There's a book, God, where is this from? Oh, it's originally from Zorba the Greek, but a guy wrote a book, who wrote this book? Oh, yeah. This is John Kabat-Zinn, the guy who writes a lot about,
also,
mindfulness.
Weirdly, Howard Zinn's son-in-law.
I did not know.
I built Howard Zinn's website.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not kidding you.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you put a pin in this one? I want to talk about famous websites for famous people we've made. We write that down.
Okay.
Please.
That's great. Yep. I'll write it down.
My kid is currently, we had back to school night for my kid's junior year last week. And one of the things they're reading is people's history.
Oh, that's excellent to hear.
I mean, you could do a lot worse. Yeah, this school, boy, they're terrible.
Worse.
They include social justice in everything they try to do. What a bad school. Oh my God. I love this school so goddamn much. Yeah. So have you heard of this book, Full Catastrophe Living? You might have heard of this.
Yeah, it's behind me. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, it comes from Zorba the Greek, but he refers to life as the full catastrophe.
Yes.
And does that,
yes.
I'm not putting this well. Does that, maybe you could explain it better than but that's kind of part of it, right? Is instead of putting this goes for sleep, this goes for lots of things. Instead of taking all the energy from my, insert Star Trek reference, instead of putting all the energy into keeping my shields up, maybe it'd be better off to just kind of stop the ship for a while and really think about what we're doing here, because the shields I'm putting up are not helping. They are depleting my energy, and it's not getting me closer to saving the people on the Kobayashi Maru.
Yeah, definitely. I was reading this morning. I don't have it in here, and it's a name I don't know I can say, which is Pema Chodron, I think is her name.
She's the source of one of my all-time favorite quotes.
Which is?
Remember, you are the sky, not the weather.
Oh, that's so good.
It's one of the greatest quotes I've ever heard.
That's so good.
She also has 2 diareses in her name.
Man,
she has 2 umlauts.
That gets too close.
Sorry, keep going.
They stole the umlauts from my name at Ellis Island, I think.
Really?
I don't have proof.
It used to be umlautowitz.
Yeah. Whoa!
Hi-yo!
Hey!
Yeah!
So this book is How We Live is How We Die. And it is this kind of...
Happy birthday, Grandma.
Yeah, I know. You know what's funny? I was reading it as
I
my
love you,
youngest.
Grandma. Here's a book.
I was reading it as my youngest came down, and I hid the cover like it was porn. I don't want him to just have to
I
take
know.
that in and be like, what the fuck?
I do that with my O'Reilly book about Pearl. When my wife comes in and finds me eating Snickers bars and listening to Vivaldi, I'm like, oh, at least it's wholesome.
Exactly. Yeah. So her thing is like, everything's always dying, right? Like, I mean, it's a dark turn in a way, but it's like, if maybe we can find
every glass is temporarily unbroken.
Oh yeah, I like that. Or as Jeff Bridges says in season 1 of the Old Man, everything's always in free fall, which is a little dark. But
that's the full catastrophe, though. Is to realize it's not a way, and this is a very Alan Watts-esque concept that I will very poorly mangle because I'm making this up as we go along. But like, the reason I keep saying stuff like this goes for sleep. One of my sleep technologies, and this is, I think, related, is that I started to realize things that tend to happen before I go to sleep. Not that I brush my teeth or turn off the lights, because who brushes their teeth? But like at bedtime, there are things that go through. I bet everybody has these things, and it's usually described as like my mind is racing or blah blah blah. I'm thinking about tomorrow and all these things. But I would sit with that and learned in time to sit with that. And a funny thing, we don't have time to get into this, but like, this is a huge deal for me, is realizing there are 3 or 4 things that tend to go through my mind before I go to sleep. This was such a breakthrough for me. And like, they include things like, well, first I realize I feel bad that I'm not just going to sleep. I'm not talking about like being up all night. I'm talking about every single night before I go to sleep. Which is important. If you only meditate when you're sad, then that becomes something that just you associate with being sad. If you just start noticing something on a regular basis and you make it a practice or a project, nobody needs to know about it. Nobody needs to know about this except that it might help. And I realized, just in summary, I tend to think like, oh man, I'm having trouble going to sleep. And then I tend to like have a sudden jolt of not panic, but I'll suddenly realize something I don't like thinking about right before bed. And everybody's got their own version of that. Then I tend to realize sometimes I have a really weird, like, sexual thought, like that's not even my sex stuff, and it's just, but like it's weird and like upsetting to think about. And then but what's funny is once you just watch the traffic without getting in the car, that all becomes very instructive. Because guess what I have now? Now I have a way of saying another phrase I like a lot. Oh, here comes that feeling.
Yeah.
And because I'm the sky, not the weather, that feeling of that jolt, how about instead I realize that means I'm now in, for my purposes, step 2 of the falling asleep process. And now once I feel like a slight tingling on my skin or on my, like this part of my body, I know now I'm about 10 minutes from falling asleep or 5 minutes from falling asleep. And like you can think of that in any way that works for you, but like, no, we're not at Disney World yet, but we just took the exit where the big green sign says Walt Disney World. So don't worry, we're still moving toward where we need to go. We're not there yet, but once you've commuted on a route 50 times, you get a really maybe even too clear heuristic for what happens. Oh, and when we see the water wheel, that means we're 5 miles away from Auntie Susie's house. Like you get more comfortable. That's why the way back always seems faster than the way there. The familiarity of that. And once you stop trying, what is the takeaway, as they say, about that? Instead of trying to reject or reparse or normalize or just reject a feeling that you're feeling, how about you just watch the car? How about you just watch the stream without jumping into the water? And now okay, now, just like every night, I've moved on to step 3. And what's weird is the weird meta part of that is once you know that that's what you're doing, and it's going to be different for everybody, but I encourage people to think about this and try this in sleep and life. But once you start doing that and it stops being something you fear or reject, it just becomes another thing. I mean, it's like you don't get as mad or sad, or you don't feel as vulnerable and broken. And this last part of this is what I realized over time. I can't prove this, but all those little thoughts that unbidden that come to me, those like I'm trying to evade those thoughts or outrun them in my head. Like, first of all, yeah, well, now that's just part, I know that's just part of the process, and that's okay. You develop a certain familiarity with it. You start saying things like, oh, here comes that feeling again. But the meta part of that is now I'm not dreading going to sleep because I have a toolbox for at least putting some kind of a frame around this. And the ultimate life hack in some ways is to not need the life hack.
Yeah.
Like once you've found a way out of your own aversion to the full catastrophe, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but that's not a thing you get a vote on. You don't get a vote on it. Why do I cry after something is over? Why didn't I cry at the time? Why is it that, like you're kind of like you're describing, right? Like, but also why are there all these things where the emotional part of it seems like it comes at the wrong point?
Yeah.
Well, what I've realized is that in the same way that my young person telling me who he is was a gift, my kid trusted me enough to tell me who he really is.
Yeah.
I could be mad about, like one could be mad about how your kid is not what you expected. And another one is to go, holy shit, can you imagine how brave that kid was to tell me who he really is? I'm the luckiest person in the goddamn world that they have a kid who knows who they are and then tells me who they are. That, and I don't think, honestly, I mean, you'd have to know me to know, but I can't imagine a greater gift than that. And I maybe wouldn't even have learned at that point how good my kid was at life until I had the vulnerability to go, that's great. I have nothing to add to this. Holler if you need money. Like, just do your thing. But I don't know if that makes sense. And so how do I attach that to sleep? Well, I start to realize that, again, because I have a practice of this, that vulnerability that I feel that I used to reject, that's just an indication that I'm human and that I'm alive. And that maybe, is it possible? This is crazy. Really follow me on this, Jeff, because this is what they call the big takeaway at the New York Times. The big takeaway is that, is there a chance that I had that feeling I don't like having, specifically because I'm vulnerable, specifically because when do you get vulnerable? You get vulnerable when you relax. You ever had a cat?
Yeah, I have 2 cats. Exactly.
You have a cat, and most cats, especially if they think about this. You get a cat, and like most cats like some kind of interaction, but some cats really like interaction, but most cats, in my experience, like interaction on their own terms. And so they'll come up and let you know when they want to scritch, or they'll let you know when there's a new box or whatever. And sometimes if the cat gets very relaxed, it seems to want you to rub its tummy. But the thing is, a cat will get so relaxed. This is I swear I'm going somewhere kind of with this. The cat gets so relaxed, it kind of unintentionally lets you rub its tummy. But what happens?
Yes.
A cat is an animal. The cat realizes it's on its back and it's vulnerable. Its belly is up in the air. And it's like a deer at the watering hole. And what happens when you rub a cat's tummy and then it realizes it's getting its tummy rubbed? It might bite you, or it might scratch you, or it might just simply leap out of your lap.
Whoa, hold on. Yeah.
Because that's the cat realizing it's vulnerable given a state of relaxation. Now, how can we, as just only barely slightly differently advanced beings, go, well, maybe that thing, that little I feel that, maybe that's life rubbing my tummy. Where like I feel I can cry because I'm not actively experiencing the bad thing anymore. Maybe I can have this feeling and that doesn't undo me. I'm the sky, not the weather. And then I get to laugh at myself a little bit because I'm like a sleepy kitty.
Yeah.
Do you get that? Does that mean, do you get what I'm trying to say?
I totally get that.
But if you don't accept that vulnerability is part of going to sleep, it's going to be hard to get a good night's rest.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing that kind of occurred to me while you were talking about, the whole watching the traffic thing is like, you were talking on Mastodon the other day about your frustration about door management on The Walking Dead. And I feel like the way we instinctually
so much
handle
to say
that
about door, and it made me realize that door management in life is about so many more things than the gate at Alexandria.
Exactly. It's like, you left the fucking door open, and that is what you're...
Yeah, the fucking priest, the guy from The Wire, left the gate open?
Yeah.
What? I thought you were just specific. They hung a lantern on it. One of the other guy, the guy who leaves his own door open on his cruiser, specifically said, make sure you close the gate, church guy.
Yeah,
I guess some people wandered in. Throw Rick out. He wants too much strict measures. Anyway, door management.
Close the fucking door. Well, that's it, right? So the other thing that happens in falling asleep when you're yelling at yourself is you're treating it as a door management problem, right? Where it's like,
my God,
why am I letting this shit in? Why did we leave the fucking gate? Who left the fucking gate open, right?
And what do? You say to yourself, well, you use phrases, and again, this is meaningful to me. I like words. Oh God, I can't go to sleep. I can't stop thinking about this. Talk about rehearsing failure. And I'm not saying don't acknowledge the truth. What I am saying is why do you have to add such a negative valence to something instead of just looking at it? Like, why do you have to have a strong opinion about everything instead of just going, yeah, there's a thing. There's that feeling.
Yep.
There's, and like what do they say in the singer in the Sondheim musical? I made it through all of last year and I'm here. Like, the full catastrophe. Boy, this is a deep podcast, Jeff.
I'm going to make it through this year if it kills me.
I'm going to make it through this year. You ever seen Craig Finn sing that with Mountain Goats? This is maybe the thing, I'm guessing in my head, this might be the thing that John Roderick probably most hates me sending to him. But because I love the Hold Steady. It's the Mountain Goats performing this year with Craig Finn singing the lead vocals with John.
Oh, I'll have to look it up.
Like imagine Craig Finn, like you can tell he's a nerd, right? Even in his coolest moment, you can tell he's a nerd. He's writing songs about John Berryman, who you know from.
Oh yeah, of course, he's buried here. Yeah,
but he didn't, so he died. I don't know. Do you like the Hold Steady?
So I have a very close relationship with that band going back.
Do you know Lifter Puller? Did you know Lifter Puller?
Yeah, we used to play with Lifter Puller all the time.
No way! That's so cool. Their performance of Stuck Between Stations on Letterman is one of my all-time favorite things. He likes the warm feeling, but he's tired of all the dehydration.
Oh, I mean, like that.
The guy's always in a totally pressed suit. He sleeps in a van, but then he comes out and he does the Little Steven vocals on Stuck Between Stations.
So yes, here's the thing. So since we're here and now we're in like very obscure territory and
show notes for this are going to be a bitch. You're going to need technology. You're going to need a new model to help you do
this. Is the only way ChatGPT is going to come into this conversation is when I throw the show notes through it.
We have pages and pages of notes about ChatGPT to talk about. We got to do a part 2.
But let's stay here because I absolutely loved Lifter Puller and I will send you this, but my band and Lifter Puller, I organized a Christmas show and we recorded a Ka-single together where
man. By the way, Ka-single is a trademark of IRS Records. Just
exactly. And their song was called Bitchy Little Christmas.
Were Lifter Puller and please help people out by explaining what Lifter Puller is and why they have a funny spelled name.
Lifter Puller was a Minneapolis band.
It's the guitar player and the singer from the Hold Steady, right?
Yeah, so Tad Kubler was the bass player of Lifter Puller, and Craig Finn was the singer guitar player, and they had Dan Monick was the drummer, amazing dude, amazing photographer. But anyway, Lifter Puller was this band from Minneapolis that got a little bit like minor famous towards the end, and were on like Jenny Jones and Letterman.
Were they regionally? They're not like twin tone famous, but like they're regionally well known.
Regionally, yeah, exactly. People loved them here. People sang. I mean, it's hard not to sing along to those stories. And I guess the biggest thing, and you can say this too, the biggest thing about Lifter Puller and the Hold Steady is the stories are incredible. It's like if Bruce Springsteen was one of us.
Well, I mean, and seriously, it's Stuck Between Stations. It's not like I'm not here to say that it's about John Berryman and the Dream Songs, but John Berryman is like. He likes the Golden Gophers,
Yeah, exactly.
But but there is something.
First time the Golden Gophers were ever mentioned on this podcast.
I think this might be why, maybe perhaps why I can't know if Roderick's ever actually listened to them. I mean, I think he's just he naturally rejects bands that are kind of similar to his. But that's what really got me when I very first heard. Not Boys and Girls in America, but what was the one before with started out with a Positive Jam?
Yeah.
You know the one, the first one.
Yeah, I know.
But when I first heard that, I was like, oh my God, this is like MFA version of Bruce Springsteen.
Yes.
With
right.
both of the things that make those two things wonderful, like reading things like John Berryman, but also really enjoying something like Thunder Road. Like that is reconcilable in a really exciting way.
Yes,
Lifter Puller, man.
Lifter Puller, amazing.
What about you? Heard Nothing Painted Blue?
Heard what?
Nothing Painted Blue.
No.
So I mentioned a minute ago the Mountain Goats. Peter Hughes wasn't in Nothing Painted Blue for my favorite time. He was in a little earlier, but I'll find a record for you. But check out Nothing Painted Blue if you like Too Clever by a Half. Kind of like listening to Jonathan Colton sing about fractals, like if you like that kind of thing, but like a little more serious. I'm gonna write that down. I'm gonna tell you about Nothing Painted Blue. Very, very smart band. Are we gonna talk about the internet or not?
We're getting there, I guess.
People don't tune in to hear us talk about life. They're here for the hot tech tips.
Sorry, fuckers.
Yeah, nice try, fucko.
God.
I got your model.
Yeah, no, we can do this. I have to say, having wound our way to Lifter Puller, I'm a little dizzy. Like, how is this happening? And starting with Matthias Jobs, by the way, which is great. Like, just a nice bookends to that part.
What was your first record? Was probably, well, you're probably younger than me, so probably the one with the "Bitch Is Hungry" song on it. Rock You Like a Hurricane. That was probably like. See, I'm a breakout.
Awful.
I'm a breakout guy.
Yeah, and I mean, I got to break out. I can say that when I got a viola, thinking I was going to be in band, the only thing I ever learned was "Rock You Like a Hurricane."
See, I would have thought you'd be into John Cale. I could see you being very into John Cale.
No, it took me a long fucking time. Long time. Yeah, but since you asked, but let's just pretend you asked what my first album was generally.
Please.
And I will say that the first one that I bought of my own volition was the cassette of Huey Lewis Sports.
Oh my God. Really?
Yeah.
1984.
1984. That's when I came alive.
So you're also old enough to remember Columbia House.
Oh yeah. Okay, fine.
10 for a penny. I owed $40 to Columbia House for 6 years because of sports.
Oh yeah, but they can't come after you. You're a minor.
And I didn't have the sense to have it delivered to our neighbor's mailbox. That was the good way to run the scam.
But Merlin, here's what's amazing that you brought that up, because I always have an asterisk in my head when I say that was the first one. What I really mean is that was the one that brought my first package of Columbia House.
Oh, that is so momentous.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
I
was a vehicle.
I have such a story about that.
Well, I don't mind hearing it. I mean, I don't know.
When I was 10, living in Cincinnati, Ohio, the neighborhood was called Groesbeck. One day, long story short, I go out to check the mail. I'm 10, right? This is 1970. It's 1976, so I had a record player. So it would be 76 or 77. The point of the story is, oh God, I'm going to mess this up a little bit. I go outside and there's a big package. And I think it was basically that thing I described a second ago. So the idea is you would get there were these services where my parents did this, where you'd sign up for a service and you'd say, okay, I really like music. They're going to send me 7 8-tracks cassettes or 10 or whatever. 8-tracks cassettes, for a penny or whatever. But then you're signing up for this thing where, like, if you don't physically mail back a thing every month, they automatically send you a record. But what everybody did was the scam. A lot of people anyway would do a scam of I get 7 free albums, and now my neighbor is on the hook for that or whatever. I went out and I got there's a big package between our screen door and our door. And I think it was 7 albums. I'll tell you the ones I remember off the dome. I opened this thing up. It was addressed, I guess it wasn't addressed to me, but it was 7 albums. I'm 10 years old. Now, this becomes one of those stories that in a shitty biopic, this would be that moment where Paul McCartney sees a bass in a window or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
It was greatest. It was a Dolly Parton greatest hits that had Life's Like a Butterfly, that era. Beach Boys greatest hits. The Monkees' greatest hits. Kiss, Rock and Roll Over. Kiss, Destroyer. One that I didn't love, a Jefferson Starship album, and I'm probably forgetting another one, but I think it might be the one with the Cunnilingus song. I got a taste of the real world when I went down on you, girl. If only you believed in miracles, baby.
Forget John Barry, man.
It was the one that had the dragon on the cover. But anyway, that was my first. I suddenly had an album by the Monkees.
Yeah.
Who at the time I was watching in reruns on UHF.
Oh yeah, so good.
And I suddenly also had an album with stuff like the Beach Boys in my room on it. Or like that era, that the era, obviously, duh, I'm not basic. I mean, I like Pet Sounds quite a lot, but like I also celebrate the catalog of the Beach Boys, especially right before Pet Sounds.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Even or especially stuff like Help Me Rhonda.
Gorgeous.
But like In My Room and boom, boom, boom. This hasn't been Don't Worry Baby. Don't Worry Baby.
Don't worry, baby.
Don't worry, babe. Yeah, that was my experience.
Like it was like their Ronettes song.
Oh, absolutely. It sounds like Hal Blaine. That changed my life a little bit.
Awesome.
That day where I opened up those records. And even then becoming like a familiar, like I didn't play the Dolly Parton as much as Kiss Destroyer, which is like, I mean, that was TH. For people my age, that was THE Kiss album. Like if you, I mean, Alive 2, which is not very good. Like there's all of those, and it sounds like you're not a big Kiss fan, but Kiss Destroyer, it opens.
I tried.
It opens with Detroit Rock City. It's got
which is amazing, which is incredible. It's a shuffle. It's it's just an incredible song. Yeah. As a drummer, it was how I learned shuffles, was that beat.
I always end up being friends with drummers. It's the weirdest thing.
Johns and drummers.
No, it's the weirdest thing. All of my fake friends that have been in bands, the people who actually will talk to me, it's invariably the drummers. I've made friends with so many drummers, and I don't know why. I mean, I guess because I can't make friends with musicians.
Oh, both sides of the mouth.
Are these your drums? Are these your drums?
You know what? My son's in a band, and his drummer, and they both run cross country, and his drummer, who I've come to know a little bit, and he was running, and he was kind of way back in the race, so he's the only one coming through, and I yelled both sides of the mouth to him, because you know this joke, how do you tell if the stage is level? The drummer's drooling out of both sides of his mouth.
That's funny. That's
so
funny, Bullseye. I like that.
I yell both sides of the mouth at this kid.
And you can already hear it in your head, Dad.
Relationship. It was a big mistake.
That's right. Can I give you one fact that you don't remark about, and then we go straight into the actual topic? Is that okay?
Yeah. If you
can I do a mic drop right here?
Yep.
I'm gonna tie it all together. It means a lot to me. My kid means a lot to me, but a big part of my kid meaning a lot to me is me getting out of the picture, or not putting myself into the picture that was taken of my kid, over a decade ago. It's very difficult to do. I think you know this, and yet I'm still very interested. And I've realized that like I only have access to parts of my kid's life because that's how it should be. But there are places where my kid is himself and performs. I would commend, it's very important you put a link in show notes to his letterbox, because he's a genuinely very funny writer. I'll get you a link for that. But for the fourth separate time last night, I signed up for Instagram.
For the fourth separate time. Are they 4 separate accounts, or do you just kill it and come back?
I've had, all my good usernames are gone, but like I signed up for Instagram when everybody first got on it. And I somewhat famously bounced because I'm like this. This is back in the Better days, that essay I wrote. Like this is back where I was like, fuck this. A bunch of people who work at Apple taking pictures of birds on wires. No thanks. And of course I have had my Facebook account like deactivated for like 10 years, but everybody thinks I'm one of the hill people. So like, hot dogs ladies, that account's gone. So last night, God, it's so critical you're not following me, but it's just to say to you that like, I don't know, we're familiar with each other enough that I think you would appreciate that. Like, that's my bête noire. Like Facebook and Instagram are like, I don't want to yuck on anybody's yum, but it's not a thing I want to do, and they're bad. And but last night Unwilling Horse is my new account, and I'm just there.
Unwilling Horse.
I'm just there. It's a quote from my Claudius. I'm just there to see my kid. But that's like, I need to bring the mountain to Muhammad, and he said it was okay to follow him there. So once a day or so, I'll
yes.
You have to go. Mastodon. Yeah. He was so bummed when I left Twitter, but I was like, and because it was kind of abrupt, where I was finally like, imagine me clapping like, new dealer, out of here. Like I cannot be
yeah.
here anymore. And at this point, it's just war criminals and war profiteers. That's all who's left there at this point. And people still send me things. All my friends who are quote off Twitter keep sending me things from Twitter, and I don't understand how that works. But no, I can handle one thing at a time. I can handle one social network at a time.
Yeah, I'm the same
I can
way.
handle, as we'll probably talk about in some future episode, I can handle one LLM with really mostly one model at a time.
Yeah, yeah.
I need to learn the hammer I've got before I buy more hammers. And I do not need more hammers, especially if they say Instagram on them. But I'm not covering myself with glory. I don't fucking care. I'll probably deactivate it. It's just not worth it. This is a sign-up process. The entire time we're sitting there, and eventually Mom and Billy switched seats so he could sit next to me and make fun of me because he doesn't think I know how to use the internet.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Listen, kid, can you even spell angel fire?
Listen, let me explain something to you. I had an internet shrine to that gal from Paramore before you were even born. It was on GeoCities, and I don't know where it is now.
And yeah, I couldn't get the under construction thing off. But
I couldn't get it, but I had a blinking GIF. I had another one. I used a pencil for an HR. That's a horizontal rule. Sit down. Let me explain to you. But like, I'll probably bounce off that and just see how it goes. But like, just the crossing the T, I think, and I said this to my kid last night, who of course looked at me very perplexed. Not perplexed because my kid's dumb, but perplexed because I'm an idiot. But like, I was like, kid, like, perhaps know me, and I'm a laughing stock in our house in every conceivable way, which is okay. I don't draw that part of my life from my family. That's not what they're there for. They're not there to make me feel smart and good. They're there to be who they are, for me to stay the fuck out of the way. I've said this since my kid was born. I'm basically a mule with a checkbook. Just if there's nothing to do being a mule and there's nothing to do being a checkbook, you're not needed right now. Nobody needs your opinion.
So you've got cocaine and a checkbook.
Well, yeah, they're in my butt.
Yeah, no,
the checkbook.
You got to get it out. You got to go and fetch it.
I keep all my checkbooks in my butt because I'm a mule.
Because I'm a mule.
Google it. Now great. Now I'm gonna have another thing on Urban Dictionary. There's man's assumption and also checkbook butt. But no, I said honestly, not that it matters. You can't be earnest with a 16-year-old. But I was like, it means a lot to me to look at new things, because I didn't say this, but I'll say this to you, Jeff. Like, and this is in the document, like, I think I know for myself, and I think in most cases, most of us tend to become, I don't know if it's conservative is the wrong word for it. We tend to become hidebound in our ideas about things and blah, blah, blah. This is a different conversation. But I was like, I like new stuff. Like, my family's constantly making fun of me. Like, there's a joke on Mastodon and on my podcast that a joke that started with Max Temkin, which Max would say stuff like, "Oh, this new iPhone, I need it for my work," and that became like, so that's a running joke now, is I need this for my work.
Yep.
But like, honestly, when I'm like, Madeline, if you're going to rent a car, please rent a car with CarPlay. And she's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, but like, if we're going to have a car for 5 days, A, I want CarPlay in the car. And B, I learned this from Jason Snell. I mean, everything is copy, as Nora Ephron says. Like, this is all stuff that applies to other things. And just because you don't understand what my job is doesn't mean I don't understand what my job is. So I say to my kid, I says to him, I like learning about new stuff. I said, but honestly, I've also learned that sometimes I need to revisit my priors about old stuff, which, believe it or not, in this case is Instagram. Because now Instagram is not just a place where they wheeze my juice and steal my data and try to sell me screen doors. It also is now a place where my kid is. And that, I don't know if I'll be there forever, or I don't need to have a big position on this. My kid's on Instagram. I'll look at it there. I found out my kid likes Talking Heads a month ago, and I'm like, why have you not sat down and watched the Rome 1980 concert with me? You need to tell me when you like things that are good.
Wait, is the Rome 1980 concert, is that on YouTube and not like an official release? Is that when Adrian Belew's in the band?
Oh, it's the best. I'm somebody who watches Exit Stage Left once a month. It's the best. It is the best recorded rock concert I've ever seen. And don't even mention that later one that's also a very good movie. That's a movie about David Byrne. This is a movie about.
This is the one that is incredible energy, just unbelievable
energy. It's got Bernie Worrell, Adrian Belew, arguably
Jesus
at the height of his
fucking
powers.
Christ.
Oh God, the woman, the singer, McDonald is her last.
I've seen it, and I actually sent it to my son and said, I literally said, this is the best live performance I've ever seen on video.
It is. It's the best live performance. And like, especially if you like Talking Heads anyway at all, especially if you're one of those people who came in, quote unquote, late with Burning Down the House. We were like, no, Fear of Music.
I thought that was the Paramore song.
All right, sorry. Fear of Music is kind of their best record in some ways. Like, it's definitely like the low key, this is like this. But Adrian Belew, and he has to play. He's playing a Roland. He's playing a solid state Roland.
Mm-hmm, sure is.
And
he made some weird decisions.
His weird ass Strat. He's taken out 3 of the 5 springs in the back. So he's got his whammy bar has 2. I think the thing is with that lineup with like 9 people on stage or whatever, I think he can't play as loud as he would probably like to play the way.
Not as many elephant sounds.
Yeah, because think about how much, it's not feedback in the usual sense, like you really got any sense. It's more like, he has to, and like you can see him struggling to, I don't know, you play guitar?
No, God, no.
Okay, but like on a guitar, like there's harmonics. Like if you hit a harmonic on the B at the 12th, that's a pretty easy harmonic. You can sound like The Edge, really easy. Do 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 do. Try and hit that one on the 5th string, and if you don't have enough volume, you don't get the overtones, and you can see him like not struggling, but you can see all the effort he has to put into that to do what he's doing. Dawnette McDonald, that's her name, and that's also I walked away saying these are 3 of the best rhythm guitarists I've ever seen. Because Jerry Harrison and David Byrne, guess what? You know what? David Byrne is a really fucking good guitar player.
Really great. Yeah, definitely.
And I want to underline this because a lot of you are going to be really smart and say, yeah, I really love Stop Making Sense. Here's what I'm saying to you. Stop Making Sense is a very good movie. It's a really good movie. It's a movie about David Byrne.
That's a great way to describe it.
I mean, this is like, you're gonna, oh my God, it's so good.
You're gonna love him without the big suit. I'll tell you right now.
It's a good bit. It's a good bit.
It's a great bit. It's so funny you bring this up because what I'm remembering now is that. So I'd already loved Adrian Belew, but I kind of just like left him in my King Crimson records.
What was your introduction? Oh, okay. So like
it was definitely my uncle's King Crimson record. The Court of the Crimson King. Unbelievable. I still put it on all the time. But I left him there, like I let it, he didn't come out of that record for me. And so when I saw this, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? And then I went down
and he's playing the whole time. He's part of the band.
I went down such a rabbit hole on YouTube that there was a point at which it was feeding me practically was a new Adrian Belew content.
Oh my God, dude, like for those of you out there who have not gotten the gospel on Adrian Belew, I mean, I think in a weird way, he might be best known from King Crimson, which is already so crazy that's what he's well known for. But like, treat yourself. Like, I think a good starting point might be after Heroes. It's The Lodger. I think on the Lodger tour. I think he's on. That's mostly Carlos Alomar, I think. But there's a live performance. Bowie's wearing like pleated leather pants, and he introduces this young man from Georgia, Adrian Belew, and he's still got hair and stuff like that. But then he was also in Zappa's band.
I was just going to say there aren't that many people who were in Zappa's band, and I am I'm a here and there fan of Frank Zappa.
I like Zappa songs and some Zappa records, and I like the way everything sounds, but I can't listen to like tons and tons of Zappa.
No. But what I love, and
I
this
like
is
Apostrophe.
Where that rabbit hole led also was just people talking about auditioning for Frank Zappa.
Oh my God!
Its own like subgenre that I highly recommend.
That is so funny. And then what else? I'm missing another one. Then he was a tickadoo. He's on Fear of Music. He's on and you know that like what is that? Ezimbra on Ezimbra. You know, which does sound kind of like Fripp. And then but he also has his solo album. You know, I am the rhinoceros. Like that was my introduction. My friend put an Adrian Belew, so my friend made me this amazing high quality Maxell cassette of like a bunch because we're both really
XL2 or XL2S.
It might have been XL2S. This is 85, so that might be an XL2.
Okay,
but it included Mediterranean Sundance by Al Di Meola et al. It included Hot on Your Heels by the band was Steeler, but by Yngwie Malmsteen, which is insane.
Include completely insane.
Some Iron Maiden, and a little bit Stevie Ray Vaughan. But anyway, it was all the shredding, like good, classy shredding guitar people, and he put Lone Rhinoceros on there because he could make his guitar to sound like an elephant or a rhinoceros.
I'm going to blow your mind straight from Wikipedia right now.
Do it. Bring it.
To say that in the list of contributions to records that he made, you've got a cluster of Laurie Anderson records, followed by Cyndi Lauper's True Colors.
What?
I have no idea.
I heard an Adrian Belew fact. I find this difficult to believe for reasons we can litigate, but okay, so my kid is a kid and loved that we're a big Ryan Reynolds house, for better or for worse, and liked that video. What's the video game movie? Free Guy. My kid really liked Free Guy. Yep. And there's a song that plays a role in that movie. It appears several times, and it's a Mariah Carey song. It's that one that goes, the sweet, sweet fantasy, baby. Yep. Now, what is the primary sample that you remember from Fantasy by Mariah Carey?
I don't remember a sample from that song.
It goes like
because
this.
I think I was so transfixed by the fact that she wasn't Minnie Riperton. Anyway, that's another story.
Yeah, I could totally hear that. Oh God, I rewatched Idiocracy last night with Minnie Riperton's daughter in it.
Which I have not watched.
Oh gosh, it's awfully good.
I should do that.
I'm going to give you 4 notes and a rest.
Okay.
Well, thereabouts. Ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum.
Oh, done it. Fuck.
What you gonna do when you get out of jail? I'm gonna have some fun. What do you consider fun? Genius of Love.
You know that you were a couple notes off from Shaft.
Oh. Talk about the black private. Wait, let me get this right. Yeah. You're talking about the black private dick who's the sex machine with all the chicks?
Yeah, no, but hold on.
I'm just talking about Shaft.
That's yes, and what follows that? Shut your mouth.
Shut your mouth. I used to listen to that cassette all the time. So Chris and Tina, and Tina's 2 sisters. Sorry. The rhythm section of Talking Heads. Tina Weymouth and Chris Franz. Now, I think even at that point, they were at least dating, probably married. The drummer and the bass player, Tina Weymouth and Chris Franz. She and her 2 sisters and Chris Franz did a really wonderful album called, I think is it called Tom Tom Club? But it's the one that's got wording, it opens with Wordy Rapping Hood, but most famously it has a song on it called Genius of Love. Yeah. Which is a song that I found completely beguiling, partly because of its wonderful animated video that I saw in 1983. But, that's that ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum. Yes. Which is sampled on that Mariah Carey song. Guess who played guitar on that?
Was it Belew?
It's Adrian Belew. Adrian Belew found out only recently. This is the part that I have trouble with. He just found out recently that, and this doesn't make sense because it seems like he would have seen some checks, but I maybe he doesn't have a writing credit. I don't know. But point is, you go and you see Free Guy, and you're going to hear that really catchy song, Sweet, Sweet Fantasy Baby, prominent sample. He discovered recently, he had no idea he had been sampled on a top 10 song. Can you imagine that? That doesn't happen to me.
No, that's never happened to me at all.
I mean, it just doesn't happen in my day-to-day, at least not that often that I find out I've been sampled on something.
Also, you know what I realized years after not being in a band anymore is I thought I knew what I wanted to be true for me in a band and my band. But what I realize now is what would have been really amazing is to be exactly where I am now, which is not with a band, but every once in a while a royalty check comes in. Wouldn't that be nice? I'm thinking about that. That is it's sort of like how my friend John Roderick wants to be. This is very specific. He's always wanted to be a retired head of the CIA. Yes, exactly. And there are numerous steps that are missing from that stack. Yep. It's funny because when I was thinking about Dinosaur Jr. and arguing with Chris and Marty last night, I had a thought, which is I kind of miss being in a band and not arguing, but going back and forth with your friends about what the best song on Trout Mask Replica is. Oh, completely. Or in that case, what's your favorite? I miss the... Got me? I miss the... Me and my girl named Limbo Spam. That's right, the Mascara Snake. Very special. That's a very special album. And it just goes to show you don't really need to wear headphones in the studio if you can hear kind of a little bit through the wall. No, fuck no. But I was thinking royalties would be nice. Just to say about bands, you had said this twice now, the sort of the relationship between banter and argument. And I think that what I miss most about being in a band is that practice space world where banter and argument are the same are sort of this,
but
like
also stuff where there wasn't an answer.
Yes.
Like today, everybody's obsessed. My dear worst friend, John Siracusa, who I've only recently realized mainly just cares about being right. He wants to be right. He wants to be right. And he wants you to know that we've already talked about this on the show before. That doesn't come up at band practice.
No, hell no. No way does it come
I mean,
up.
like in the same way that like I've tried to say to my dear wife, sometimes communication is not about relaying information. It's about bonding. Right. And like, that's really good to know about me, because when one of the bits in every family's got bits, and one of the bits in our family come up, I'm not doing that. When I quote a Curious George cartoon, and there are Curious George cartoons that I quote constantly, like all the time. Anytime I hear, you know me, maybe a certain cadence, and I just start quoting, that's a good amount, or a lot of cheese, or like whatever it is, or something happened in there, something monkey related.
All I hear is, woo,
woo. And remember his pigeon compass? That's such a good show. That's
good technology.
Turn off Caillou. Turn off Caillou.
Oh, turn off Caillou forever. Turn on Pingu if you can't get to...
What about that Mr. Hinkle? Has he ever been indicted? Remember Caillou's next door neighbor? That guy's no Mr. Wilson is what I'm saying. We're closing the threads on our threads. Useful things I sent you a screenshot. Useful things to say to yourself. Not now. Stay on target. Stop. Just keep doing the thing. Whatever. You'll get it next time. What exactly are you saving this for? That's to the chicken wing that my wife put in the fridge a long time ago, and I said, you'll never eat that. Because now we've got garbage and the cost of a bag. I decided not to let it bother me. Obviously, we're going to need to have maybe next week or something. We will have another episode to talk about the dingus. This feels like something good to do.
Yeah,
I bet there's somebody who will like this.
Oh yeah,
and I'm sorry. I'm very deeply sorry. Very deeply sorry. Hey, is there a podcast? Like, what are you listening to? A good podcast? You like? Oh, have you ever heard Serial? Yeah, I've heard Serial. Yeah, but like, is there one where they talk about Glenn Fleischman and Lifter Puller?
Have you heard the off week Overtired?
Oh my God, it's so good. What about Franz Nicolay? What about that guy who plays keyboards in the Hold Steady? Did they mention him at all? Well, I heard on that show that he likes the warm feeling, but he's tired of all the dehydration, is what I heard.
Yeah, it's probably that sounds about right. I've heard
the hardest part about this is going to be finding things for notes, because this would be a very good notes episode.
That's actually the most fun part. Thank you, Merlin Mann.
Wait, is that it? I mean, how the fuck is that the end?
Didn't you just say we're done?
Oh, I probably did. Let me look at my notes. I think I said I'm done. Let me check.
Feel free to wrap up.
What else did I write down? Oh, I wrote down the phrase ditto health. Oh, yeah. So one thing I was going to say, I realized this in life, but I really crystallized when I was in the hospital in December for a few days. And I forget what this is related to, but it was related to something you said earlier. Oh, about your kid?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. You're talking about, like, we were talking about kids and, like, sort of however you think of it. Like, your kid's going to college, you're fighting the last war. You're like, and you're talking about, like, I kind of got the implication from what you're saying, I think, of like, hey, I need to get my head in the game. Like, I'm not helping by being sad about who my kid is. I'm not saying you said that, but you know what I mean? Like,
yep.
And I realized while I was in the hospital, the thing that makes so many things so difficult in life is that everything keeps going on in life, no matter what is happening with you. Put differently, your entire life, your life that you're part of, continues to go on even when you feel bad about life. And that's an observation. It's not, you don't have to go run around, do anything, change your schedule.
Yeah.
But, it's what makes it difficult. Like when you're trying to get help for physical or, God forbid, mental health, ask your co-host about this. Your life will continue to go on. You still got to do shit while you're figuring out how to be who you are in a way that's sustainable. Yeah. All of life goes on without you. And the reason I say that here is for several reasons, just in the generic. Well, no, in specifics with your kid, you're losing actual time, whatever time you have right now, being how you are, or, having the life that you have. And I'm not trying to make this a binary or digital. I'm not saying like, my kid's 8, so now I'm not sad anymore. No, but like the problem is like your head's not in the game and you're not there for what you do have. And the thing is that goes for everything. And that requires an extraordinary amount of tolerance and forgiveness in yourself. And like, that's why I try to avoid saying things like, you better do this, or like, why don't you just, or all those things that dumb people say. What I'm trying to say is, like, everybody says, oh God, be sure to spend time with your kid. And it's like, it's true. Like, my tip was always for parents, get on the floor, go be dumb.
Get on the floor. Yeah,
do what your kid wants to do. Even or especially if you think it's stupid. You don't need to corral them or have like a personal intellectual rodeo that'll help them be proactive in life. Like, just get on the floor and build whatever dumb crap your kid wants to build, whatever. But like, that keeps going. You can have relief from the feeling of always fighting the last war by not making it about yourself, and by saying, hey, some days I'm the mule, some days I'm the checkbook, and some days I'm not needed at all. And that's not bad. That's just what it is. So instead of trying to constantly, in the same way that you cling to these pants that don't fit anymore and this chicken you're never going to eat in life, find a way to disappear.
Life's chicken.
Life's chicken. And find your way to disappear into the full catastrophe the most that you can at a given time. But as you said earlier, we never got to this, but then make that a practice. Make it a thing you keep coming back to. If you have a fork in the road, like if you're trying to be healthier and you have the choice of eating more well or less well, well, you always have that choice whether you like it or not. That's the Kierkegaardian dilemma of life. But like, my kid will live with us, God willing, for a little bit longer, a year or so. And like, I have so many levels to that feeling, many of which I've gently tried to move aside, including, hey, why doesn't my kid like me as much as when my kid used to come crawl in bed with me before dawn on Wednesday mornings, because that's when the new comic books came out. And we would read on the iPad, we would go see what's new with Adventure Time or Spider-Man or whatever. And I miss that, but like, that's that kid. That's that person.
Yeah.
And also that was me then. And then like the next level becomes like, oh, that is sweet. You have that memory. You must miss it. And it's like, well, it's not that I wouldn't say I miss it, Bob, but it is. Sorry, that's Office Space, not Idiocracy. But like but you know what I'm saying? Like it takes a lot. The great Edgar A. Guest, it takes a heap of living to make a house a home. It takes a lot of like gentle self-awareness or like non-dad voice stuff to incline yourself toward accepting you are where you are, you've been where you've been, and that full catastrophe continues whether you're into it or not. And I'm not saying you have to go out and zone out and buy a iPhone app that has a gong sound in it, but like there is a way that you can incline yourself toward the tumult of things you care deeply about. And in some ways, maybe that vulnerability might bubble up in ways that are both instructive and useful, and will help you transition to whatever your next thing is. And that's that the full catastrophe goes on. If you're living, it's difficult.
This has been awesome.
This is the best. Thank you for having me, and thanks for playing with me and tolerating me. And hello, everyone. And sorry for how we are.
People died for us to be able to do this podcast.
Yeah, I didn't watch my buddies die face down in the mud.
The system is
Am I
going
wrong?
down now.